everyone. My name is Joey Lloyd. I'm the Vice President of Marketing here at NanoLumens, and I want to thank you all so much for joining our webinar. To get us started and kicked off, I'd like to introduce Mike Neal, CMO of AdMobilize.
Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining. Joey, thank you for the introduction. My name is Mike Neal, CMO of AdMobilize, and I will be co-leading this webinar with Bryce. Bryce, if you could provide a quick intro, that would be great.
Absolutely. Bryce McFeeters, Director of Customer Experience here at NanoLumens, and I really lead the charge as it pertains to our Aware platform.
Great, and thanks for joining me, Bryce, as well today. Today, we will be talking about, and probably spending the next 20 to 30 minutes on audience measurement, using the who to explain the how, and what NanoLumens and Mobilize have been working on to provide an integrated solution that we think end users will love. And today's agenda is really three main points. It is, what is audience measurement? How is audience measurement implemented? And why is audience measurement implemented? And we believe that with these main topics, we will really cover a lot of bases and gain a lot of ground on how audience measurement is being used in the digital signage and digital out-of-home world today.
Excellent. Mike, thanks so much for kicking us off. Just to remind all of our attendees, you can feel free to ask some questions while we're going through. If you look at your GoToWebinar, you can go ahead and type those in, and as we can, we will answer them. We also are leaving some time at the end for questions, and additionally, you'll find a couple of handouts available for you as well.
Perfect. So we want to kick things off with some brief introductions about the company. I believe most people will know who NanoLumens is on this webinar, but Bryce, if you could give a quick introduction, that would be great.
Absolutely. So we are best known for our LED displays. Any size, shape, curvature that you can think of. Very high profile dynamic executions, as you can see here. What you're looking at there towards the top is an entire ceiling, walls, roof done in LED display, but really what we're very much known for is our experience that we can provide and the level at which we can deliver.
Very nice. And just to give a quick introduction about AdMobilize, we are an analytics platform and an AI platform for digital signage and digital out-of-home. We specialize in computer vision and machine learning solutions that provide data and analytics for all sorts of environments. And what we'll really get into today is our core solution of audience measurement, describe what that technology is, the basics of how it works, and Bryce and I will go through a few examples as to where it's being used and why as well. So to really kick things off here, because the technology is a very visual type of technology, we like to show a quick video or GIF, if you will, of just how that technology works. And in this short 6 to 7 second GIF here, you can really see kind of a hands-on demonstration. And the solution that we're working on for audience measurement is based on what we call anonymous face detection technology. And that's based on computer vision algorithms and camera sensors that we use to collect data about audiences anonymously and store that data via dashboards and other types of interfaces. What's really interesting about this solution, and you might be seeing it here in this example, is that we really cover some core metrics that are important to digital signage, digital out-of-home, and just digital media in general. The core metrics for this are understanding the number of viewers and people who have the opportunity to view your digital media and or digital signage. It is understanding the demographics of those viewers, age, gender, etc., and also understanding the emotion or providing a mood analysis of those viewers. A lot of times that's used in some very creative applications, but I would say all the metrics are used to measure and understand various audiences in a variety of ways, which we will get into as we go further along in this webinar. So what we're talking about today and what AdMobilize and NanoLumens have been working on is really an integrated audience measurement solution that really makes the lives of the end users as easy as possible in regards to actually using and implementing the solution. We sort of compare it to the OnStar or Sirius satellite radio model, where in that model, let's say a car actually comes out with the technology embedded. The correlation or the comparison could be made to a digital screen that NanoLumens manufactures could actually come out with our audience measurement technology and solution instead of it being separate. And there's a ton of advantages to that that really make the experience and the solution that much more valuable. But what we're doing at the core is measuring key data points that provide both measurement and analytics to understand audiences and how those audiences actually interact and engage with content on the screen. And we like to believe that really within digital signage and any type of content-based medium, it really is all about the content. And we've seen time and time again, the data that we can collect is used by all sorts of users to make that experience much better for their audiences. So we sort of think about it in three buckets, right? Measuring attention, which is really measuring the engagement that viewers have. It's really about analyzing that audience via dashboards and post-content delivery reporting. And then it's about taking those learnings, those insights, and triggering some engagement. Often this is either done dynamically, conditionally, or even just manually based on learnings from the insights gathered. And what's become really interesting about this solution is that it's being used in a variety of environments. It's not just retail or advertising, although I think those are some very prominent use cases. But we're seeing some use cases in stadiums and pharmacy, innovation centers, corporate communications, et cetera, throughout the world. And there's a lot of value being created by collecting this data and helping end users understand how to leverage it. Bryce, did you want to explain a bit about how the AWARE system is integrating the sort of audience measurement technology for your end users?
Absolutely. So, with the AWARE system, basically what we look at AWARE is the next evolution in content management and display management. And really, we're building a robust platform that can continue to expand and keep cutting edge. And one of the frontiers of that is measurement. Everything's about measurement. We're no longer talking about, just putting content out there and basing it off of what we think is happening. Measurement's going to become key. We've already seen it through beacons, through Wi-Fi, but really one of the best ways to do it and keep it anonymized as we go into this, new world where everybody's concerned about privacy is through platforms like AdMobilize. So what we've done and what we've implemented is this level of, as Mike discussed, measuring attention, analyzing that, and being able to trigger based upon that. But what we're also looking to do, and one of the reasons we're utilizing the platform, is there's so much more to do beyond that. Everybody's just now catching on of knowing their audience, much less what can you do when you know that audience in front of that. What else can you trigger and what experience can you augment with that data as you're getting it? So these are all things that we're working hand in hand with AdMobilize to do. AdMobilize really understands the need and where the market's going, kind of taking one step further towards that. So it's been a great relationship, and as we work it into where it gives us that ability to continue to expand that and knowing your customers in front of your displays.
Exactly, and I think one of the key words is really the concept of this integrated solution, right? And I think that is becoming key to adoption and also just really starting to understand how end users are going to use the solution. And if we can make that easy for them, then I think the end users and different brands will enjoy that very much. So what we want to do now is just show a quick example, something that we think is pretty interesting, and it's becoming more and more interesting as we go along. And that is about one of the initial installations in the Las Vegas Convention Center. And this is interesting not only because of the area, Las Vegas Convention Center, one of the most highly trafficked convention centers probably in the world. Obviously, you have things like CES and, of course, DSC and Infocom and many, many other shows throughout the year there. But what NanoLumens has done with the actual display technology, where it's at, the actual size of it is really impressive. So what we want to do with audience measurement is really measure the impact of that digital media and really understand how the audience is engaging with that digital media, just on the most basic level, even to start. As we go along, we think that with the various partners and the work that we're doing, we'll really come up with some very interesting applications and reporting aspects that I think a property like a convention center, and especially the Las Vegas Convention Center, will make very interesting, right? And Bryce and I have known each other for a few years now, and he always gives this great example of, I think, a Fortune 500 company, Bryce, that learned a few things from the data that maybe they hadn't really thought of or known before.
Absolutely, I can share that with the group. So it's really amazing how many groups think they know their audience and how different it can be in different markets and even verticals. So you get this really complex target that you need to be able to hit, and everybody would think that Fortune 500 companies with the budgets they have really know this and have this down, and it's actually quite the opposite. So one of our clients probably is one of the best groups at marketing that you could imagine, and they were targeting certain shopping centers, and when they really looked into those shopping centers and they launched an audience measurement system such as this near their product, what they were learning was they were almost 180 degrees off of who they thought their client was. They thought their client was males aged range 20 to 30 years old, and really it was females aged range 30 to 40. So you could see how quickly knowing these things can completely adjust your message and help it hit. And this goes from everybody that may have 2 locations, 3 locations, and very little marketing budget. Maybe your marketing team size is 1 person or 2 people, to all the way up to Fortune 500. You can always learn more and become much more efficient at what you're doing.
Exactly, and I think one of the major key themes there that we see often with our customers globally is really it's all about the content, right? And as Bryce said, whether you have 1 marketing person or multiple teams around the world, the ability to use and leverage data, whether in a real time or just aggregated sense, to improve the content and the user experience for these various installations is the results can be pretty remarkable and pretty inspiring, I would say. So now we want to get into really the why. I think companies are leveraging audience measurement. And I think we're going to start very simple, and we're going to get kind of more sophisticated as we go along. But what's interesting is the most simple use cases are the ones that I think we talk with customers about a lot today, at least at the beginning. And the most interesting part, I think, about working with these various customers across all the verticals is seeing the evolution from really very little or no data to the intense amounts of data that we can end up providing at scale, right? But really, I think one of the main reasons people want to use the solution, whether you're a small business or the Las Vegas Convention Center or a big box retail store, is marketers especially want to know if anyone is actually seeing their screen. Of course, the answer is always yes, people are seeing the screen. But when you can quantify the viewership and the viewability of these various displays and these installations on a simple even Excel sheet or a dashboard interface, we really see, sometimes literally, marketers' eyes light up. Because generally in the physical world, people are not accustomed to seeing this type of data. Online, you obviously often will see real-time insights and data in almost everything you do, no matter what it is. In the physical world, what has been happening, especially in the last few years, is a plethora of platforms and solutions and data providers that are providing all sorts of insights for different types of products. And we choose to focus on digital displays and digital media and content. But answering the kind of very fundamental question of, is anyone seeing my screen, I think is the very starting point. And often, especially after this last DSC in March, when we talk to end users directly and or their integrators and them, that's really the first reason that comes up as to why people want to begin to explore and invest in this solution, is to understand that viewership and how that looks over time, certain days, certain hours, certain locations. You can do quite a lot with just that very simple data point, right? The next step, I guess you could say, is once we set the baseline of okay, we have this many viewers on average per day, whatever that time threshold is. Brands and marketers and different teams really want to understand, well, now that I know that people are looking at this display, what are they looking at? What are they paying attention to? What is capturing their imagination, capturing their attention real estate, if you will? And one of the interesting things that we're doing with Aware is helping to understand what content is being seen and where, right? So really, we break this down into two main categories. One would be display-based metrics, which is I have this sort of LED screen or display, and 100 people saw this display today, right? Or 50% were male, 50% were female for this particular display as a whole. What we're starting to really develop is let's say I have a playlist of 8 different types of content and rotations and videos that are playing on this display throughout the day. What we're starting to provide insights for is actually based on the specific content that's played and at the time it's played, the very same metrics are starting to be applied, right? How many people saw this particular message? What was the demographic breakdown? What was their mood when they were viewing it? How long did they engage with it for, etc.? And really the content-based metrics and analysis, I think, is becoming the most interesting part of this kind of solution, because then as a marketer, as a kind of communicator for whatever your media or location is trying to display, you really get a sense of almost what's working and maybe what's not working so well in general, but also for specific audiences, right? I think people are surprised when the audiences change drastically. You know, as in Bryce's previous example, sometimes you believe one thing and the data will tell you another. And once we start following the data, we can start seeing some KPIs maybe improving over time, right? Attention time is greater. There's more viewers, right? Than maybe there were before, based on some of the changes made based on those insights. So I think that's really key, and something that we're looking to develop a lot further as we continue to work on this solution, is helping marketers and different groups understand that content engagement, right, along with the display as well. And last, of course, we want to leverage the results that we gather really to create a lot of value, right? And the two main examples I give are, you know, related to advertising and retail, but they're certainly not they're not limited to those examples, right? We have, you know, interests and projects and all sorts of verticals and use cases and areas that I think would surprise a lot of people. And I think it's because everyone's interested in data, and everyone's interested in leveraging data to increase their KPIs and their engagement with their audience, right? To understand their audience and to understand what they like and what they maybe like a little less, right? To give a few quick examples, and maybe Bryce will have some insight into this as well, is, you know, on the advertising side, obviously with some of this technology, we can measure viewability and impressions in real time. We can deliver very highly targeted campaigns or content, and really create very specialized, engaging applications, which you're seeing more and more of now. And on the retail side, it's sort of similar, just based on content and messaging and various marketing activities, you know, leveraging that data to deliver, let's say, interesting shopping experiences, understanding throughout a shopper's journey, how do they integrate with different levels of digital displays, how do they engage with different types of displays, different content on those displays in different locations. You can really build a pretty incredible audience profile with just our core metrics of viewers, demographics, and emotion analysis, right? Bryce, did you want to give any more examples about, you know, kind of what you're seeing in the market, and maybe some other verticals in which people might find this solution kind of interesting?
Yeah, I mean, I really think that you're on the right track. The two largest things we see is, one, from from a retail-like perspective, is getting to know your audience, like you were talking about, and being able to target them with messaging. From the other side, really, where we deal a lot with is in transportation, out of home, the convention center, so to speak, where revenue is being driven by these displays. And ultimately, you know, every year costs go up for these guys, and they have to justify why the value of these displays goes up to the buyers. Well, audience measurement is one direct way to do that, because now, let's say, you know, female sports focused group is looking for anything, bus shelters, airports, etc. They can easily say and provide metrics behind it, saying, look, we know that on these couple displays, you're going to be dominantly female audience, so your message is going to be across much more than just something based off of, hey, we know this corner of the street gets 100,000 people on it a month, right? So a much more deep metric to really help drive that revenue portion of the advertising world.
Exactly, and I think even in non-advertising, what's really become interesting that we've seen is that in some of our projects, we've actually seen the inclusion of audience measurement increase the investment in digital signage and you know, digital media. not only with dollars, which is obviously important, but also with just engagement, right? Just with teams and end users really becoming heavily involved in the process and truly engaged. I think it's also very important to point out, providing these tools and these interfaces is really, making this, quite exciting, I believe. And of course, with this integrated solution, we're building all sorts of interfaces and different ways to organize and connect with the data and manage devices. This is a big part of what the Aware platform is providing as part of that integrated solution, and using the AdMobilize data as sort of the backbone of that solution. Bryce, did you want to point out any interesting facts or maybe developments coming soon with the particular interface that's being provided with Aware?
Sure. One of the things that, and Mike, I know you touched on this briefly, but one of the things that I always take a step to do with our clients is, it's very simple to get over the top with, we need data, and going as fast as you can into it. I come from an interactive background, and I relate it to the same space. My previous life, we started doing interactive media for out-of-home back before the iPhone was invented. So you could imagine how difficult it was for people to understand not only that, hey, there's a digital display when print was king, but that I could actually touch it and interact with it. The second that iPhone came out, everybody was touching everything, and if they didn't touch it, you thought it was broke, right? Same thing I find is really kind of happening in this measurement market. There was this mass push for everybody to just do everything, beacons, Wi-Fi, this, and nobody, still when I talk to people, the end clients and users are really still wrapping their heads around, what do I do with this information? And what does it mean to me? Because everybody's slightly different. So the approach we've taken is kind of staging it. So what you're looking at here in the background, you can see the list. This is kind of our out-of-the-box experience where I can connect a camera to this and start collecting this data by system, and I can compare that with my other reports and know, hey, usually from 10 to 2, it's mostly this, and the content I'm playing during that, it gives you a real solid but basic understanding. And as you start to use our platform more and more, and you start wrapping your head around the fact that, oh, hey, it would be really interesting if I could do this. Or what if I tied in POS and my inventory levels to this? And so that's what we're doing, and where we've been working with AdMobilize is building a solid base to where we can start doing much more custom and much more specific things that are necessary for our end clients as they get used to this data. So what you're looking at is really the basic implementation, but we're working on, AI-based dashboards where you can start tying in different markets, multiple systems, and comparing data to where it's issuing. When you log in, it's telling you the information. You're not having to go out and search it out, so you can put in your KPIs and know that the second you log in. We're moving towards automated playback based upon the audience in front of it, so real time it can adjust and know whether it's mostly female, mostly male, mostly an age group or a different age group. And all those things are forthcoming, but we're staging it specifically because we have to, get the market ready for those types of advancements.
Exactly, and yeah, as Bryce said, I think this is truly the beginning. It provides a solid foundation, and we're definitely looking to build upon this, to create a variety of experiences and applications. I think that's one of the more exciting parts about it.
Excellent. We've got some questions from the audience, if we can jump in on those for a moment. Excellent.
Yeah,
so first question is, how do you get access to the beacons, to the cameras? Does that come in the display? Is it part of AdMobilize? How do folks go about that?
Well, I can kind of start, and maybe Bryce can kind of fill in the rest. But because we are really trying to focus this as an integrated solution, we want to work with NanoLumens and figure out what's best for the particular installation or project. to understand what camera sensors might be required based on maybe the size of the area, the size of the screen, where it's best to actually place those, and really kind of make it more of a hands-on experience so that, when the project is being implemented, we really cover all the bases.
The only thing I'll really add to what Mike is saying is kind of on the front side of that is understanding the goal, because there's a lot of buzzwords. Everybody likes the buzzwords, but when beacons first came out, it'd be like, what is a beacon? How do you think it works? And you get 10 different answers. And so one of the things is, understanding what the end goal is, applying the correct technology towards it, and then integrating that in the manner that Mike laid out there.
Great. And Bryce, a quick softball one here for you. LED versus LCD, does it work on all, one or the other?
Completely open, display agnostic. One of the biggest things, where Mike was just talking about is just really more comes to the space and being able to target what type of camera, what technologies. The display itself is agnostic. Obviously, you would like the camera to be near the display, so you're measuring eyes on the display. But there's several ways to layer these technologies even without a display, where you can get a much more three-dimensional, for lack of a better term, view of your space.
Excellent. And our next question, how does, I apologize, we've got the questions rolling in, guys. Let's see here.
Wow.
Is Aware an additional software to AdMobilize or a configurable feature within AdMobilize?
So, go ahead, Bryce, if you wanted to chime in.
Again, my line broke up. I'm sorry.
That's okay. Is Aware part of the AdMobilize platform, or is it in addition to? How do people get access to it if they're already users of AdMobilize?
Got it. So, go ahead, Bryce.
Go ahead, Mike.
Yeah. So I think the way we look at it is the AdMobilize solution is really an integrated part of the Aware solution, right? So depending on if, I think what kind of displays we're working with, or even what the space is like that we want to implement this in, we would work with that particular customer to understand, how we integrate this with Aware and how integrating Aware with the AdMobilize solution is, beneficial.
Got it. And if someone already has a NanoLumens display or a full display network in their mall, for example, would they be able to outfit their displays post-implementation with beacons, cameras, and with the software?
Yes, absolutely.
All right. We have a question about GDPR. Is using audience data against this new regulation that's coming down the line in just a month or two, actually?
Yep. Yeah. So I can take a crack at that one. So, obviously, many parties, I would say most businesses today, are keeping a very close eye and, really spending a lot of time preparing for these new regulations that are coming out at the end of May. We certainly have here at AdMobilize, and Bryce and I have worked together for this particular solution. Specifically, I think we're still working on those very kind of specific items as it relates to the integrated solution that we want to probably publish. But in general, the AdMobilize solution is all anonymized and aggregated data. So what you might probably see more of in regards to the regulation is potentially signs being put up, similar to how you might see this area is under surveillance signs. And we're still investigating, what is the appropriate language to put there, either in general or even based on some specific regulation. But in general, the AdMobilize data is all anonymous and aggregated. So we don't brush up against some of the regulation as it relates to, personally identifiable information, right? And I think that's probably the key point for us.
Excellent. And on this topic of security, are there limitations or particular areas where you can or cannot put cameras or beacons or sensors?
I would say yes. There's always some parameters and limitations on where you can and cannot place these. Specifically, thinking of some examples, I would say anywhere where there, there's some sensitivity around where people are at, or there's, privacy in terms of a particular location is, is very important and sensitive, obviously. But I think where we see a lot of implementations is sort of like the question before, when you think of malls, retail stores, arenas, etc. I think that's where you see a lot of the value. And I think in those areas, there's, in general, many, security cameras out there in the field, and our solution doesn't really act as a security camera, if that makes sense. But certainly there are some areas where you don't want to, probably implement the solution. But I would imagine a large LED screen is probably not going to be in one of those areas.
And any limitations to global use? And this is for both Bryce and Mike.
So quickly from the AdMobilize side, no limitations. I mean, in some regions, obviously in Europe, there may be a few things we might do differently versus in the U.S. or another region. But in general, our solution is used in about 75 countries around the world and growing. So we're truly global with the solution at this point.
Aware overall is built to be a worldwide based solution, so no issues with any level of licensing or anything for that matter. The only place that there could potentially be restrictions, and as it relates to AdMobilize, would be whatever the independent partner that we have as part of our marketplace may have restrictions. But as Mike, laid out here, AdMobilize does not have one.
Guys, we are rolling with these questions, so bear with me.
All right.
Excellent. So I think one of the last questions that we can address before we finalize, a little bit of idea about pricing models for both Aware and AdMobilize, and talking about, are these cloud-based or SaaS-based services, and giving some details there.
Yeah, for sure. So I can kind of start, and I think Bryce will kind of fill on some more specifics, but I think we're looking at a SaaS-based model. Often with these models, there are different tiers, essentially based on volume or usage. It will kind of depend on the project, and I think a lot of it depends on the volume.
From the Aware side, Aware is really built around a SaaS-based model. We do have a local server version for high security environments, so that's kind of a one-off custom type solution. But with our platform, in our monthly fees that we charge, and depending on whether you're a channel partner or an end user, those are slightly different. But all of our fees include the AdMobilize portion that we have integrated into our software.
Excellent. Well, we are just about 45 minutes in, and I do want to acknowledge the fact that we have a few more questions. That said, those of you that have asked some personalized questions about walking through some of the installation perspectives on the Las Vegas Convention Center, as well as deep pricing and monetization of these platforms, we will reach out to you independently and get you as much information as necessary. And I do want to thank both of our hosts here, Bryce and Mike, and say thank you again so much for hosting and giving us lots of great information. Guys, do you have anything else to add?
No, I would just add, thanks everyone for their time, and we certainly would love to follow up with any additional interest, questions, etc. I think this is going to be an interesting solution for a lot of people.
Absolutely, and thank you guys again from the NanoLumens side as well.